We're going to make part 3 for activity 5.6, physical property analysis. So this is the part that I've already created. To give you a quick overview, we're going to create the front face of the object first as our first sketch. And then we will make that sketch a work plane. We will then offset that work plane to make another work plane so that I can then sketch the back of that shape. So you can see that here I've sketched the back of the shape. And then we will use the Loft tool to make a nice smooth surface between those two shapes. And then you'll add your name and change your material. So let's get started. We are, just to note this one, we are actually in the metric system because as you know it says it's using 10 millimeters for each grid box. We're going to go to metric and do part in millimeters and create it. So I'm going to start a sketch. The first face I'm going to draw is our front face. So that's the first one I'm going to draw. I'm going to start with my line tool and I'm going to draw all the lines that I know the dimension of. So we go up 50 millimeters and then I go over one box, which is 10 millimeters. Okay, so I'm not really sure what angle it goes down at, so I'm going to pause on that. I'm going to draw the other lines that I do know, and I know the base is 90 millimeters. I know this side is the same, and it is 50 millimeters. And then I know that this is 10. Okay? So again, there's a lot of ways to make this sketch. I'm just showing you one way. So since I don't know the angle that these lines come down, I'm going to put the point, the bottom point where they intersect. I'm just going to use the point tool for that. So I know my point is right in the middle. If I count the boxes, it's in the middle of this shape. So that dotted line is telling me that I'm coming up from the middle. So I'm going to place my point. Then, in order for a point to be fully dimensioned, it needs 2 dimensions. So let's give it those 2 dimensions. So if I count, my point is 10 millimeters up. And then my part over I know is halfway, which is 90 divided by 2, which is 45 millimeters. Give it a check. And you'll notice now that that is fully constrained because it is purple. So now all I got to do is connect the dots. Make sure you're hitting those green dots. That's giving you those intersection points. And now my part is fully constrained. So I'll hit finish sketch. I'm going to zoom out. All right. So now what I need to create, so we've created this surface. Now I need to create a work plane. I'll create a work plane and then offset that work plane so that I can now sketch the back face of my object. That's our goal. Okay. So I first need to make a plane, so you can click the arrow and there's a bunch of options here, but we're going to just use the first one. To make the plane, you got to select 2 lines on that object to make a flat surface. So this is just made a plane. Now we want to offset from that plane. And now you just got to click what plane that you want to offset. It's asking you, okay, what distance do you want to offset? And then we want to offset the distance of our part. So if I count, we're at 1, 2, 3, 4 grid spaces. So that's 40 millimeters back. And that makes my surface now that I can draw the back face of my part on. So I'm going to start a 2D sketch and pick that plane. And you'll notice it automatically rotated me to the front. So I'm going to rotate around so I'm actually drawing on that plane. Makes things a little bit easier. Okay. And I can project my geometry. Things that I know are the same are the side, bottom, and other side. So those I don't have to redraw. It just makes my life a little easier. And then I'll use my line tool to add in the upper one. So if I count, the lines go over 20 millimeters now. Same thing over here. I go over 20 millimeters. All right. And now I'm going to do the same thing, pick my point. I do know if I count, it is in the middle. Okay, so I know it's in the middle. I'm going to grab that dotted line. Now I need to add the 2 dimensions to make that point fully constrained. From the bottom, I'm actually going to go from the top because that's what I've calculated. So I'm going to delete that out. Delete. And now I'm going to dimension from this line to this point. And that I have calculated to be 2 boxes down, which is 20 millimeters. Okay. And then I know that this point is halfway at 45, so that's good. So now all I have to do is connect my dots, green to green to green, and I am fully constrained. So I can hit finish sketch, and now you'll see that I have those 2 sketches. All right, so our next step is to do the Loft command, okay? And make sure you follow this step by step because Loft command can kind of get tricky. We're going to go up to the top of our ribbon and go to Loft, and you'll notice that you can loft crazy shapes. It's kind of a cool tool to get those smooth transitions in from like a circle to a square or these 2 shapes. Okay, so the first thing you want to select is the first sketch that you want to loft, and then you want to select your second sketch. And you'll notice it's already kind of figuring out the shape that you want. Hit OK, and there you go. You have your shape. If you want to hide your work planes, you can just right click on them and uncheck visibility. Just kind of makes them look a little bit nicer. All right. So then don't forget to add your text. Make my text box, put your name, hit OK. So let's look at it that way. There we go. Finish sketch. So now it's, there we go, nice and happy. If it's out of the way, you can always click and drag and move your text. And then the last thing you want to do is change your material. And that's polyethylene. There you go, high density. Okay, then you'll find your eye properties, take a screenshot, and submit this part. That concludes this tutorial.